Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm your host, Nathan Staples, and joining me this week are Eric Devin and Philippe Bargil. Sunday saw a multiplex that was a feast for the eyes, with storylines almost across the board. But who got stronger on this penultimate lap of the league season, and who is limping across the line? All of that and more after the latest headlines. Liga's penultimate match day was filled with thrills and spills, and with none of the bottom five yet mathematically safe, the relegation battle will roll until the season's bitter end. In Fos-sur-Mer, Bastia won behind closed doors for the second time in as many weeks. Half-time substitute Gael Danic setting up Enzo Crivelli before adding a contender for goal of the season to keep the Corsicans alive in a 2-0 victory over Lorient. Another veteran winger followed in Danic's footsteps in Dijon as Frederic Samaritano notched a goal and an assist to power the hosts 2-0 over Nancy. Caen also played their part, losing 1-0 at home to Rennes to leave the bottom five within 4 points of each other heading into that final match day. Monaco all but confirmed the title with a 4-0 win over Lille. Radamel Falcao with a brace leading the way as the host made it 3 wins from 3 against the northern sides this season. Paris Saint-Germain did their best to chip away at the leaders' advantage in goal difference, winning 5-0 at the Stade Geoffroy Guichard to spoil Christophe Galtier's final home match as Saint-Etienne manager. And in Montpellier, Lyon shook off their midweek defeat to beat the hosts 3-1, with Alexandre Lacazette assisting Nabil Fekir before adding a brace to take him on to 26 goals for the season. Angers trotted out a somewhat rotated side in Nice, but it was still enough to rebuff the injury-hit hosts 2-0. While in Metz, Ismaïla Sarr was at it again, scoring the hosts' equaliser in a 1-1 draw with Toulouse. Marseille were unable to end a 40-year winless run at Bordeaux, but their 1-1 draw may have proved the result which sees them clinch 5th place. And finally, Nantes continued their impressive late-season form with their 3rd win in 4, 4-1 over local rivals Guingamp, as Emiliano Sala scored twice and added an assist. In Ligue 2, Troyes' win over Reims saw their opponents eliminated for the battle for promotion, but among the top 6, only leaders Strasbourg failed to win, meaning they remain within 3 points of each other with similar goal differences. The race for the top flight will come down to the very last minute between 6 sides. How very exciting for Friday evening. And that's all for the news. But remember, for all the latest, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start this week on the wonderful shores of Monaco, who have sent out their party invites. They've bought those banners and T-shirts, and the champagne bottles are ready to be uncorked. A 4-0 win at home against Lille has all but sealed the title, barring a miraculous 17-goal swing on the final day of the season. And even a point in their rearranged fixture on Wednesday against Saint-Etienne will do it for them. But, Philip, what a season it has been for them, really, and it's practically done.
What amazes me is the fact that a club like Arsenal is actually considering Leonardo Jardim to succeed Arsene Wenger. And if you look at it 12 months ago, Wenger was also on borrowed times, and Jardim was like, it was okay. He knocked out Arsenal, but it was so far from being a serious proposition. So fair play to Jardim. He completely transformed the club, and he transformed the way Monaco were playing. Basically, they were playing extremely defensive last season. They didn't make the second spot. They got heavily beaten by Lyon. That was 12 months ago. It was on the last day. And you got Falcao, who was coming back. You had all these all these players who were actually quite good, but Monaco was so awful to watch this season. It's been 102 goals. I think this is PSG's total of last season, so it says a lot. There was a great debate also last night on L'Équipe TV saying that PSG did not have a bad season because PSG do have 83 points. Sorry, that's 86 points from 36 games. So I had says they could have 89 by the end of the season, which is pretty much the norm for winning a 20-team league in a big league. But Monaco have basically said, you know what, 90 points is not going to be enough because we'll win it with more. We'll win it with something like 95. I think it will be 95. I think they'll win. They'll get 6 points out of their last 6 games. Saint-Etienne were just I'm going to say not really interested in the game, more interested in Christophe Galtier's send off, and it's a bit of a shame that such a successful manager for the club and had to endure such a heavy defeat. It's not that often that Saint-Etienne lose by 5-0 at home. So there you have it. The thing is, I'm pretty sure Monaco will win. Will get 6 points out of 6, but I'm pretty sure that PSG will do everything they can to get those 17 goals they have to score against Caen, because our Caen absolutely awful, and I won't actually be that surprised that this game ends in double figures.
Let's talk about the result they got at the weekend, Eric. Well, yesterday evening might be a better way to describe it. It was a comfortable 4-0 win again, but that makes it sound like it's the norm this season, really, hasn't it been? For a team that's now, with that win, passed over 100 goals in the league as well. These kind of results have just become what we expect from Monaco at this moment, isn't it?
Yeah, it really was almost, you could say, a compendium of the way that they attack. Lille didn't lay down. I think that you could even say they dominated most of the first half. They had more possession. They had more shots. Naim Sliti in particular had a good match. I think that we shouldn't forget that Lille are, with the change they're experiencing in the season of managers, and Marcelo Bielsa coming in for Franck Passy, a lot of these players are playing to catch Bielsa's eye. So they're still working very hard and they're still trying very hard. I didn't think that Lille laid down at all. And that is something that we shouldn't forget, that I think that they would have taken some amount of joy out of defeating Monaco and making their celebrations be on hold for just one more day. But that being said, yeah, it was the goals that Monaco scored, the way they played, it was their season in microcosm. You've got this brilliant assist from Lemar to Falcao, who heads the goal home. You've got Mbappe doing this wonderful Ronaldo-type step over. If you haven't seen it, do seek yourself out a GIF or a highlight on the wherever you get that sort of thing from. Standing up front, Barry, and then cutting inside, and pinging the ball back to Bernardo Silva, who taps home from close range. Mbappe had another lovely assist for Falcao as well. Just really a compendium of the way this team played. Bakayoko had a great match too. He was all over the place in midfield. And Fabinho and Sidibe looked fairly composed at fullback. Everybody was, maybe not at the highest level they've been all season, but was really clicking and purring, and it was really, really good to see that. I think that there certainly could have been, at least in terms of this team's confidence, a bit of a blowback from the experience that they'd had against Juventus, and realizing that, yes, they've accomplished a lot this season, but there's still more to go if they really want to be considered among the best teams in Europe, both this season and going forward into the future. But a great match to watch. I know that Philip had mentioned before we started recording that the Monaco match was over before it started. Well, I mean, it was and it wasn't. I still think that there was a lot to really enjoy from that match in terms of just seeing this team press home the fact once again that they are such a thrilling team to watch, and there's so many ways that they can hurt you, and I really do hope that they can build upon that. Winning the title will give them a seed in the Champions League, which is going to be massive, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing how this team transforms itself in the summer, and to how they progress next year, both domestically and in Europe.
From what I heard or read or saw actually, because I was watching the multiplex. It did seem to me like Lille were giving it a good go, but were just not that sharp enough in front of goal to score against as good a defense as Monaco, or as good as goalkeepers Subasic is, and that Monaco only had to make a bit of an effort to score. So it was almost unfair on Lille.
Well, Subasic had a really strong match yesterday. I didn't name for my team of the week. I named Yohan Pele because he was huge in a match that had bigger implications. But Subasic absolutely had turned into vintage performance. I know we've seen him be a little bit hit or miss this season, but he was magnificent on the night. I mean, he's had some notable gaps against City, Spurs, Bordeaux, but no question he was ready. I think this means, especially if you think about the role that he has in the team. You also have Germain, Durar, and Raji, who've been with the team since they've been in Ligue 2. But Subasic is the only one of those players who plays regularly. And I think that for him, this is a validation not only on a team level, but on a personal level to show, he's replaced Plakosa as Croatia's number one, and he's won a Ligue 1 title after being in France's second division. It's an incredible set of achievements for him as an individual as well.
We'll talk about the game with some friends during the week, and the debate of Camille Glick with Jemison actually happened, and most of the people I was talking with was that Jemison was only as good as long as he was playing with Camille Glick. Any opinions on that?
Go ahead, Eric. I'll let you jump on it if you like.
I definitely think. I mean, obviously, Jemerson has improved massively this season. Glick has been important in terms of that, but there's also individual development on the part of Jemerson. I mean, Glick has missed a handful of matches. He is a player who gets the odd booking, and I think that we shouldn't take that away from Jemerson. I think that his adjustment to a new league, his ability to have, well, not even a full preseason though, because Glick was with Poland at the Euros. His ability to have more of a preseason with his teammates to get more accustomed to play next to a higher quality of player. I mean, let's face it, Wallace, Elderson, and Achillejee was played out of position sometimes. Raji's a great servant. Don't get me wrong; his versatility has been really important for Monaco this season in managing injuries and suspensions. But Ricardo Carvalho, Jemerson simply been played alongside a higher quality of player, and someone who, despite himself having language barriers, has been, no stranger and not shy to be a directive presence who can also get about the pitch himself. I'm not trying to say that Carvalho in particular wasn't that much of a leader, but at 36, 37 years old last season, his effectiveness was certainly limited. But in Glick, you have someone who has that sort of skill set, that sort of mentality, that sort of outlook, but is also able to back it up with his ability on the pitch. He's not someone who merely relies on his experience, but he's 29, 28. He has the mobility and the forthrightness to make that work. So it's Jemerson's development and it's Glick. I think that there's a lot to be said for that because, again, in the matches that Glick has missed, I know he's been pretty much never present in the league, but he has missed a couple in the Champions League. I don't think that Monaco have been terribly negatively affected. I think that Jemerson and Raji are still a decent partnership, and that's a testament to the growth that Jemerson's had this season.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, and I also think Glick's a really good foil for Jemerson in the way they both play. I think that Glick's more, let's say, robust, old school might be the other way to put it, style of defending. Really complements Jemerson a little bit better, who is a little bit quicker, a little bit more pass friendly, I suppose. But they complement each other much better than I thought Carvalho did with Jemerson last season.
And more accident prone, wouldn't you say?
Less Jemerson. So than he used to be. At least,
probably. But I see Glick as some kind of Mr. Reliable. The thing with Jemison is that when he came to Monaco, nobody heard of him, and Monaco weren't doing, they weren't great to watch, and it basically came under the radar. I mean, Glick to me was the best centre back of Euro 2016, and people actually expected him to deliver, and he did. I mean, for someone who's played a major tournament and went to the later stages of this major tournament, so that would be with Poland, the quarterfinals. He has played 35 games out of 36. So he's only missed this one game. He wasn't injured once, and he's played the 90 minutes every single time. Scoring 6 goals, which does help, even though Monaco scored 100 more. But what a purchase this has been. It does. I honestly think it doesn't get mentioned enough because everybody thinks, well, Glick had a fantastic Euro 2016, so obviously he's going to be very good. And Monaco basically have the ball all the time, so they don't need to defend. Blah blah blah. So some kind of ignorant comment like that. But I think it needs to be commended, Glick, and would be I would think in most experts' team of the season.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll hear more from him in the next couple of weeks as we sort of round out the season as well. But let's look a little bit towards the future, really, Eric, and let's see who might stay and sort of who will go. We already at least have an inkling that it seems like Youri Tielemans of Anderlecht is practically through the door. Are you looking forward to someone like that? He might possibly see the use of Bakayoko or a replacement for someone like that who might be more likely to leave. Are you excited to see the Belgian come to France if that's the case?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic move. I think that if Bakayoko is sold, there have been many links to Chelsea. I think that Monaco would do well to get a good price for him and to bring in Tielemans. They would probably make a profit. Tielemans' fee has been mooted to be around £22 million. I would definitely think that Bakayoko could be sold for more than that. And even factoring in the purchase price of Bakayoko, Monaco are certainly making money on the deal. And they're also making themselves a more dynamic team. And Bakayoko sort of was, when he was brought into the team, was seen as sort of Kondogbia light or a replacement for Kondogbia, being a big physical presence that could get forward with the ball at his feet, but could sometimes be found a little bit wanting in his passing and his positioning. But Fabinho was next to him to help mop up for that, and they made a good partnership. Tielemans is not that sort of player. He's fantastic getting forward, but he's also much more of an attacking presence. I believe he's got something in the order of 15 goals, 8 assists for Anderlecht this season. It might be across all competitions, but I think those figures certainly represent a player who's got a lot more to contribute to the attack. And I think that if Fabinho stays, I think that this team, in terms of its midfield, becomes even more dangerous, even more dynamic. Tielemans is a smaller player. I think he's 5'9", 5'10", but he's got a real bustling physicality to him. And I think he would make this team even better than it is right now, to be frank. I've only seen him play full matches twice against Saint-Etienne in the Europa League, but he impressed there and has continued to do so as he leads Anderlecht into Belgium's very convoluted playoff system for the Champions League and Europa League at present. But I think he'd be an upgrade on Bakayoko, and I think he's an incredibly wise investment. I think another thing that shouldn't be underestimated is that even as Bakayoko's been a little bit erratic this season, that this really is his first full season. He hasn't had to deal with injury or being in and out of the team in professional football. I've said this before, I said it again. I know he's 23 this year, but you really can't treat Bakayoko as you can a Bernardo Silva or Thomas Lemar, players that have been in the side consistently for a much longer period of time. This really is Bakayoko's first complete professional season. So there could be more to grow for him. It could be a move that if he does go that Monaco regret, but I think that in Tielemans they're getting a more than adequate replacement and a player that might even be an improvement. Tielemans has been a regular with Anderlecht, playing European competitions, playing with the Belgian national team now for quite some time. I think he broke through when he was 16 or 17. He's 19 or 20 now. And the Belgian league is, as we've seen, certainly been able to bring through players of a high standard. Premier League fans will certainly know that. I think that we've seen that in France as well to some extent. But certainly the quality of player that comes out of the Jupiler League, the Belgian league, is of a high quality, and I think that's a really great move for Monaco.
And I think I read the other day, I think he's just about to come up on about 100 appearances for Anderlecht, which at his age is it's pretty remarkable, to be fair, to get someone that with that kind of experience at any level, really. I just wanted to also very quickly, Philip, get your thoughts on possibly who might go. Is there anyone particular in that Monaco team that you think if they do leave, it doesn't affect the team as much as it might do, say, an integral part like maybe an Mbappe?
Probably not. It's probably not the worst case scenario. I think Monaco have not some kind of a plan to replace Mbappe, because you can't really produce an Mbappe every year, unfortunately. But I believe that even without his stamina and creativity, Monaco will still have high flying in front of goal without him. So obviously there'll be less potent in front of goal if Mbappe lives, and everybody wish he doesn't. I reckon maybe the worst case scenario would be either Lemar, Bernardo Silva leaving, Fabinho as well. Looking how important he has been in midfield, and he actually played on right back last night. So just goes to say how good he is. But yeah, Lemar and Bernardo Silva to me are almost as important as Mbappe leaving in creativity and in the movement. It really is a whole unit type of thing for Monaco. So it's very important to see who they let go before talking about who may come in. And I don't expect any big names to come in. I expect big names to go out, unfortunately.
No, that's kind of not Monaco style. Very, very quickly, Eric, best case scenario for Monaco in the summer, is that possibly something like selling Bakayoko and possibly someone like Sidibe, getting a healthy profit and then investing that in another 3 or 4 young players that can maybe bolster the squad for next season?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be honest with you. I've had this debate on Twitter with a couple of people. I think that right now Amami Touré is a better right back than Djibril Sidibe. I know Sidibe is a French international. I know he's fantastic going forward, but there's simply been too many times this season where he's been a liability defensively and positionally. Touré's got more pace. He's got more physicality. He's not quite as dynamic going forward, but I think that with a player like Bernardo Silva, who lacks somewhat in physicality and not a work ethic, but just an ability to cope in terms of tracking back, you really need a player who's going to be responsive defensively, who's going to get forward, but do it selectively. I think that selling Sidibe for a profit. I know Arsenal have been linked in the past. He didn't go there because of his doubts about playing time. But if Barcelona come in for Bellerin in the summer, which a lot of people think they might, I think that selling Sidibe to a club like Arsenal makes a lot of sense, and that maybe we should hope that observers in the Premier League might not be watching Sidibe as closely as we have been, and see that he can be somewhat of a liability. I think that selling him is absolutely no skin off Monaco's nose at all. I think that that's a move that they should maybe even seek to make, as it could be a potential bulwark against other players being forced to leave in terms of the club's financial pressures.
It would be an unbelievably Arsenal signing for them to sign Sidibe. It just would be typical Arsene Wenger. I can just see it.
Yeah, please, Arsene, get your checkbook out. That would be nice. Bankroll.
I actually think on the matter, I agree on the whole, even though Touré hasn't played as much, so it's difficult to compare. As Sibo was quite immense at the beginning of the season. There he's had a bit of a little injuries and stuff, but it's more about the concentration lapses. And how Touré has been quite more reliable than Sibe. So I do agree on Eric. I mean, Monaco can let him go. It's not a problem. Even though, we were definitely not saying that back in September or October, where he was quite good.
Yeah, I think he added a nice balance at the start of the season, but he's slowly but surely. I mean, I think the game against Juventus was the best evidence of he seemed to thoroughly enjoy having the ability to go much further forward than he was probably allowed to at right back. He seemed very pleased to be not worrying as much about his defensive responsibilities. But we'll move on because we don't want to give too many people a bit of notice that he might not be the greatest signing this summer. Let's keep this away from Wenger. So one thing that is not as clear-cut as the title race is the relegation, which will go down to the wire in the last day of the season. Nancy will probably need a small miracle to really stay up, but Bastia, Lorient, Caen and Dijon are all scrapping for survival. They're all within about 4 points of each other. And let's start with that surprise result in Corsica. Really, Eric, can they complete this Houdini act and fully escape?
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, what makes the difference for the teams down the bottom of the table are having players who can break a match open. Now, with Bastia, I would have said that's Enzo Crivelli, that's Alan St. Maximin, based on what they've done this season. Maximin didn't even start, which really surprised me, looking at the 11s yesterday afternoon here in Mexico when I was watching the matches. But then you have a player that comes on, and it's Gael Danic, who's 35, 36 years old at this point, former Valenciennes and Lyon player, and has a lovely assist for Crivelli, but then scores absolutely incredible goal to seal the result, 2-0 with about 7 minutes to play. And that's the thing, that if you look at a Nancy, if you look at some of these other teams that are down here, if you look at a Lorient without Sylvain Marveaux, without Benjamin Mukanjo, they don't have those players who can turn a match, who, as an offensively challenged team, who can turn a match at the drop of a hat. And that's given Bastia a chance to follow this up. Nancy haven't had that. Dijon had that. They've got Frederic Samaritano, another veteran player who's been in the league, a decade, and who did the same thing. And that's what makes the difference. Danic, I was just poking around on the Ligue 1 website. The weekend he made his debut, George Weah started at center forward for Marseille. Just think about that. He's a player who's been in French football for a long time, and that's what makes the difference. A player who can have that moment of creativity, that burst of inspiration to allow these teams to separate themselves in a given match, and who have that veteran experience. I mean, let's face it, Valenciennes, I think Danic played for 5 or 6 seasons, were never a team at a high level. They were always battling for relegation. But so often, a player, Danic, can make the difference for them. I mean, that's why he was brought to Lyon. He wasn't bought as a starter for Lyon, but he had that moment of inspiration, that moment of genius, that veteran wile that could really make the difference. And I think that was what was key to that match yesterday, is that inspired substitution from Moya Almeida.
And that's the important thing. Sorry, carry on, Philip.
I think Valenciennes did have a couple of good seasons. Well, they didn't finish like in the European place or anything, but they're a very solid mid-table side. And this, I believe this is the 09-10 season when they finished 10th, with a lot of other players having a very good season, and that maybe were more hopeful than we may think. It's just that just didn't go that well for Danic at Lyon. He did have 1 or 2 quality seasons, and it's no real wonder, even at his age, that he performs the way he does.
And it's impressive that a little spark like that from sometimes an older generation can really help a team out. But an interesting wrinkle to the upturn in Bastia's results recently, especially Philip, is the fact that they've played 2 games away from home, 2 games with empty stadiums, and they've picked up 2 wins. It's maybe a little bit unheard of, really, but it might be a strange way of saying it, but has being away from the Fioriani helped them?
I think the opposition did help a little bit. Rennes are, I'm going to say, easy to beat these days, even more so that their season is over. They have quite a horrific away record with only 2 away wins. Actually, one of them was last night. A lot of draws, but still, what is one of not a great side to support when you're traveling as an away fan. And I was actually quite disappointed in Lorient yesterday. I honestly thought that with the empty stadium, with less people supporting Bastia, they would have the necessary qualities to beat them on which is a neutral ground. with no with no fans. I think that the likes of Wakazo Aliadier and the like would be more than fired up for a game like this. And it's quite horrific to think that Bastia have a chance to stay up despite what happened and the extremely light punishment they received for what happened at Lyon. I mean, it would be completely disastrous for a club like that to be able to play top division football next season when you know that their fans attack players on the pitch. But on the game, I mean, they did deserve to win 2-0, and they weren't. The thing is, they don't really lose. They haven't really lost that many games at home, and they're quite hard to beat at home. So it's more to answer the question. It's more about the weakness of the Brittany side that visited than Bastia being, absolutely superb when no fans are attacking players.
And then another interesting result at the weekend that involved those relegation side was Dijon's win at Nancy that sees them probably the favourites at the moment to stay up, but they would need a pretty random set of results at least to be guaranteed to go down automatically. Eric, how big was that win against Nancy?
I mean, I don't think that anybody looking at the run-in for these relegation-threatened sides really saw Bastia as being a threat. I think that this match was targeted as the match of the weekend. These teams are fairly close geographically, about 2.5, 3 hours from each other. So it was always going to be a feisty atmosphere, and it certainly was. I think Dijon, turned in a great performance. They were missing some key players. Fouad Shafiq has been really good for them at right back. He was out, and they had to use the youngster Valentin Rossier. But the team performed really well. Frederic Samaritano was incandescent with a goal and an assist, and then they sailed it off after Diony scored at the end of the season. And again, in Diony, in Samaritano, and I think there's a lot to be said also for the young Korean player Chung Kim Kwan that they signed in the winter window. They have these players that have a lovely ability, a lovely vision, a lovely attacking mindset to break a match open. And if we can see that again, from Dijon, who play in a positive style and if this team aren't destroyed in the summer. I know Pierre-Lise Malou, we saw him being linked to Nice. We've seen Lois Diony being linked to a host of clubs. If they're not destroyed in the summer, I think this team can maybe even kick on. I'm not saying European place, but it can be both attractive to watch and not relegation threatened next season. I think that they've, Olivier Delio has done a really wonderful job under somewhat limited resources, and there's a lot to build on in this team. Just, well done to them, and I do hope that they survive. Going to Toulouse have not really been at the races since they've fallen away from those European places. They had that brief little flash of form when Angel Delors first time with the team, but in the last 10 matches or so, they've really not been very good. And I think that that's not an ideal match to close the season with, but I think certainly if you're going to have to go away on the road at this point in time, Toulouse is not really a bad option amongst Ligue 1 opposition.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at for Dijon to be automatically relegated, it would require Bastia to win away at Marseille. It would require a Lorient win over Bordeaux at home, and also Caen to pick up a point against Paris Saint-Germain. Pretty unlikely circumstances, but you've seen
this.
Where's your accumulator, Nathan?
Yeah,
Put 5 quid on it.
So carry on, Philip.
Saying this, Nancy are playing Saint-Etienne. I honestly can see them beating Saint-Etienne. It's not impossible, even though they're not terrific. Saint-Etienne are also quite in a horrific form, and it's not impossible. If there were ever a team in the top half that Nancy could be, it would be Saint-Etienne. So if results go their way, it could happen, but it's it's a lot to ask.
And it's still, even if they do that,
a lot to ask, but still a lot to ask.
Yeah, true. And even if they do, it's the strange feeling of they would have. Well, we'll get onto it later, but it'll be a relegation playoff place instead, which is at least a little bit of a salvation rather than going automatically down. But to talk about that,
I was thinking.
Go ahead.
I was thinking, if Bastia do get that playoff place, where do they play?
That's
do they get to play? Do they get to play that Furiani in a full house, or or do they keep playing this in the south of France with nobody allowed to watch? Would be a bit bad for the promotion of the playoff. Right. Yeah,
my understanding was that the match extends the ban extends one match beyond the end of the season for them, with the idea that they could have potentially qualified for that playoff spot.
What a harsh punishment they had.
Yeah. But moving on to the other game in that bottom of the table, and that was Caen's defeat to Rennes, which on the view of the replay, Philip, it was a frustrating one for the home side, who had a number of little chances where they maybe should have gone ahead, and then a little bit of a crazy goal really from Giovanni Sio, where I'm not 100% sure he meant to head it like he headed it, but it did, and it went in, and it's put Caen right back into the mixer, hasn't it?
Actually, I couldn't remember Sio's goal specifically, but now that you mentioned the description, I see exactly how ridiculous this goal was, because Sio was basically in midair, and he somehow headed the ball perfectly into Vercout's top left-hand corner. Again, between two poor sides really, and Caen looked to me like a side that had not much passion, not much going on for them at all, really. Very, very little chances. Pretty much a pathetic display, one that we've seen many, many times. And it's strange because they are capable of being quite good. I mean, they did beat Nice a long time ago, but they are capable of not being too bad, even at home. But it just, to me, this side deserves to go down. It's plain and simple. It would just not enough fight, much less fight than at Bastia, much less fight than Lorient, Dijon. It just deserved to, and nobody's into any doubt of the result next Saturday at PSG's ground.
I have a theory on the CO header that he was in the air and he did his usual header, which usually spoons over the bar, but because he's such a perpendicular angle and he's got such a 50p head, it just deflected into where it should have gone instead of going wildly out of the stadium.
It somehow went in. Nobody's quite sure how. It just somehow went in. It's like when you see a player wanting to cross the ball, but actually the cross is so badly struck that it ends in the back of the net. It's to me, it's that type of goal.
Yeah, there was a lot of people really enjoying that goal, but I don't get it myself. Eric, Caen couldn't really ask for a more difficult game to end the season away at Paris Saint-Germain. So with them sat on 36 points, with other teams possibly motivated to get above them, knowing that they've got such a difficult game, are they a little bit of a sitting duck at the moment?
Absolutely. I think that PSG do have the Coupe de France final after this, and you better believe that the players that are going to be picked to start for this match are going to be giving it their all. They want to be on that pitch at the Stade de France come next Sunday. And that's something that shouldn't be underestimated. This is not a PSG at the beach. Even the title's been probably by the time that kicks off will be not theirs. And it's a bad end to Caen's season now. And if they do go down, I mean, as Philip rightly said, they've had their moments, but I don't understand some of the choices that were made to start Ronnie Rudolin on the bench, as they have for each of the last 3 matches, I think. I don't think he started in, certainly not last weekend either. It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. He didn't start against Toulouse either, and to lose both of those matches 1-0 when you have...
He started against Marseille.
He did
start against Marseille. He started all the games from early February until the Marseille game. He started all of them. So I'm not quite sure why either Garand would, say it's your fault.
Yeah,
somehow.
I mean, to lose 1-0 to Rennes and Toulouse, mid-table teams with nothing to play for, with a player who's, if you've seen Caen this season, I know Santini gets the goals, but absolutely Ronnie Rudolin is the best attacking player on that team. If you've got some issue with him, if you're Garand, if you're trying to pull a power trip, you need to put that aside, because you're now in real danger of putting this team back into the mire. I think that it's a frustrating set of circumstances that was eminently avoidable, even as they did beat Toulouse.
Yeah. Calamo has his moments. sometimes.
I have to agree with
I'm
that.
trying to defend their call, you know,
And
but
it is tough this season. To be
very
fair.
difficult.
They've been very, very up and down is probably the best way to say it. So let's get some final predictions because there's only one weekend left. I want both your relegated sides and then who you think will be finishing in the relegation playoffs. I'll start with you, Philip. Who's going down and who will be in the playoffs?
I'm not going to be very dramatic. I think the bottom two will remain the bottom two. I don't think Bastion will do anything at Marseille. Won't be getting points. I think Marseille are still very much in the run for fifth. They want to finish fifth. They won't be able to finish fourth. They are now 7 points behind Lyon. So I think it will be a defeat for Bastia and 1-1 draw. Between Nancy and Saint-Etienne. So Nancy to finish bottom of the league with 33 points, Bastia with 34.
And your playoff?
Yeah, I think it'll be Caen. And I really hope we do. I'll explain that in a moment.
Eric?
I think that the bottom three as they stand. I could see Dijon getting points, but I don't see anything coming from the rest of those teams. I think they've just got too much to overcome. I think that even though Saint-Etienne might be on the beach, I don't really foresee Nancy winning by a large margin. So whether it's Nancy and Bastia or Bastia and Nancy is the bottom two, I don't think that's going to change. I don't see Laurent getting anything against Caen either, or getting anything against Bordeaux.
Yeah, I can see a draw.
I still think Bordeaux will be frustrated by the manner in which they lost to Marseille yesterday, and I think that they're going to want to go all out in that match to push OM all the way to the wire.
I'm going to agree with Philip. I think it'll be Bastia and Nancy to go down automatically, and I think Lorient might draw against Bordeaux. I think I just have that one of those feelings, and that would really irritate Caen that they went down went on to the playoffs at least because of a goal difference. It would really frustrate them, and that perfectly leads us on to our next topic, which is really the relegation playoff itself. It'll take place after the season's conclusion, obviously, for the first time ever, and it's similar to what you see in the Bundesliga, which is third bottom will play third in Ligue 2 in a two-legged playoff to see who plays top flight football next season, and it's been a topic for most all season. It's increased bottom competitive. Some would argue at the bottom of the table. To others, it's seen as a device really to keep the powers of league in the top tier. But Philip, where do you fall on that spectrum?
Well, you're going to understand that we were quite close. The LFP with the Fredetiers, we were quite close to have a change where only the bottom two and the bottom two of Ligue 1 would get relegated, and the top two of Ligue 2 would get promoted, and that would have meant even less drama at the bottom of the table, because there are some seasons where you have two very, very bad sides. I'm thinking about last season with Lens. Actually, there was Metz and Lens, but it wasn't last season. It was a couple of seasons back. And the top two was already settled. They were like 10 points behind the third bottom with 15 games to go. So it was ridiculous. There was absolutely no drama. Now, the playoff system is the same playoff system they have in Germany. Most of the times, the top division side wins, logically. But I think it's a step in the right direction. France was until this playoff was installed, one of the last countries not to have worked with playoff system. It's not my favorite one, but I think it adds a bit more drama to the end of the season, and that actually means that the league season does not end after the 38th match day. Then there's this type of playoff, and I think it's usually between sides of reasonably sized town. I mean, imagine if it's Caen against Troyes, you'll have a lot of people attending. It'll be quite entertaining for the neutral. It would be actually quite nice. So it's not my favorite. I think the English one is quite exciting as well. So third against sixth and fourth against fifth in the final at a major stadium. But I prefer it to what it used to be. which is a 3 go down, 3 go up. A bit boring.
Eric, it was possibly a worry at the start of the season that the playoff would change how things end up at the bottom of the table, but it's potentially given some sides that may have been dead and buried in the old system a little bit more hope, hasn't it?
Absolutely. I think that how close things are in Ligue 2 and the way that a lot of those teams play, if they're not doing it necessarily through financial might, as Reims tried and failed to do this season, they're doing it through placing faith in youngsters and through playing attractive attacking football. And those are the types of teams that we need to see succeed in Ligue 2. We need to see earn promotion as a means of a reward. Playing attractive football is, instead of grinding out results, I think is always going to catch the eye and boost the reputation of France internationally as this league seeks to make itself more successful in terms of emerging audiences. That's a very holistic take on things, but I think that it also, in terms of drawing audiences within France, which a lot of teams have struggled to do in the recent past as well, is also important. Playing football, quote unquote, the right way is important, and being able to reward a wider variety of styles, especially in a league like Ligue 2 that can often be so negative, is really important to give that chance. And as Philip rightly says, I think the Lons and Mets from 2014-15 is a good argument, but at the same time, this season there's more of a mix, but it also allows a little bit more of a lifeline. I think that generally you don't get 3 teams that are cut adrift, so that third team will at least have some redeeming values to it. And I think that that's a good thing as well from a Ligue 1 perspective. So yeah, I'm absolutely a fan of the playoffs. I think that it allows more teams to feel that they've got a chance, rather than what theory is, as Philip rightly said, had wanted to do. I would probably lean towards 3 up, 3 down myself being a better alternative, honestly. I think that for the reasons I had previously delineated in terms of helping Ligue 2, but I also understand theory as wanting to make Ligue 1 more attractive to particularly foreign investment, that you're more likely to get that sort of investment if your team is statistically more likely to stay in the league. And I think that we've seen with the misadventures rather of teams like Charlton and Blackburn in England, how that can go wrong very quickly if relegation becomes a factor.
Philip, we've sort of said the spectrum of it really being maybe a tool that's made it more interesting at the bottom of Ligue 1, but in Ligue 2, it's been very close near the top of the table, especially at the end of the season. But that would have probably been just as exciting if 3 were to go up, if not more, in the sense that teams know that a win would guarantee them promotion. At least maybe this year is not the greatest example, but might this affect Ligue 2 in the future, in the sense that a couple of teams might spend a little bit more to make sure they have enough to go up, or maybe some teams give up the ghost a little bit earlier because they may think a third place is a little bit of a risk, because if taking the Bundesliga for example, there's not many teams from the second division that tend to win that playoff. Is that maybe a risk as well for the second division?
Well, I think not a lot of the French clubs have as much thought as you have, Nathan. I mean, quite yet. I believe that Ligue 2 being what it is, teams are very, not to say negative, but more pessimistic about the whole thing. Is that it's always about taking the 3 points, taking the game week after week, blah blah blah, being not giving the journalists a lot of major punchlines to add to the report. So yeah. I can quite see most of the 20 squad saying, okay, well, we're planning on finishing third, but it's still going to be very difficult because it's going to be against the Ligue 1 side. This season, even more so. This is why I honestly do want Caen to finish in that playoff spot, because I think it would make for a very entertaining game, meaning defending being not very good. Whereas I can see Lorient beating the likes of Troyes or Amiens. Amiens are really not that really not that good a team, and yet they're second. Strasbourg are top. Strasbourg have been okay, shall we say, but they've conceded a lot of goals. It's still going to be. We don't want to finish fourth, but we definitely don't want to finish third either. Third place is very rarely decided before the final day in Ligue 2, and this season it won't be no different, obviously, because the top side has 3 points more than six. There's only 3 points separating first from six, which is quite amazing. But it says a lot about the quality of the league as well. It means that the top side has only 64 points, whereas in Ligue 1 the top side has 89. It's a world of difference, and no side has really come off and been and has been that good or that consistent. So it's. Still, the side who finished, so we'll be happy because they have to play a game of their season, really. But still, you can just see Ligue 2 being Ligue 2, saying, "Well, we're not favourites. Let's try and do our best." That's basically the motto.
Yeah, and the thing we also sometimes forget about in these kind of situations is those two that do automatically go down. It's also going to be much more difficult to go back up again, in the sense that there's one less spot to go back up into. So it does an interesting catch-22 with it. We'll finish this week's podcast really with a little bit of a chat of that Marseille game at the weekend, and Marseille earning a draw against Bordeaux in the end. And it's the former now in Marseille that control their destiny, Eric. They both play relegation sides, as we've already mentioned, so they're not really guaranteed victory. But how big of a hit would it be to l'OM if they were to miss out now?
I mean, I don't think they're really words. I think that being in the position that they were, to have that level of talent, to have that level of investment they've evinced already in January, to not get Europe, given how poor, well, not poor, but given how inconsistent teams have been around them, it would be a real disappointment. No, again, the only way that Marseille or Bordeaux don't get Europe is if Angers beat PSG in the Coupe de France final. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but I mean, let's be realistic. I don't think that any of us see. Angers did manage to get a point from PSG in the league earlier this season, but PSG obviously had other concerns at the time. But I think that in a cup final, it's going to be quite a bit more difficult for PSG to be beaten. So yeah, it would be huge. I mean, I think that the carrot of the Europa League will be key in luring away players who are perhaps in some of France's less highly regarded teams, mid-table teams. I think that it was certainly probably key in luring the likes of someone like, say, Morgan Sanson, who has been fantastic for Montpellier. But again, I think since the destruction of that title-winning team in terms of sales and players simply aging out of the squad, that you're not going to have a realistic hope of reaching the Europa League places with Montpellier, even with players like Mouni and Boudebouz. But being able to offer a project that has bigger ambitions in the Europa League, but is already reaching a demonstrably higher level of play than they had in the previous season, is an important carrot for Marseille's summer transfer window.
Yeah, and concentrating on really Marseille's rise as well, really, Philip. If we just spoke about this sort of January time, we would have never really believed it. But this is an important step, really, for their project, isn't it? European football could really help them attract the talent that will sort of maybe push them towards that top four spot that they'll probably be looking for next season.
European football and money, yeah. It's again, I don't think that Europa League is necessarily going to be good for for next season. It's going to be good for the club because it's Marseille. It's the biggest club in the country, and they need to have good players. They need to have a good season. They've had a fine season. I mean, especially comparing to last season, where there were only 13s. But there's so much things that need to be settled. First thing being the pending future of Bafim Tibi Gomis, who is on loan from Swansea, and I think everybody wants him to stay. I don't think Swansea absolutely want Bafétimbi going to go back to South Wales. I just think that's a nice little pre-season. No European football, no Thursday game kickoff would be a great start to actually a very calm way of starting the season and say, okay, we want to finish in the top 3, which could happen if Lucien Favre does leave Nice. There was I read a rumor today that he may be going to Dortmund, which would make the race for quite exciting for next season. But of course, it's good. It's good that this club is in Europe, as it is such a great ad for French football. But if Marseille want to make bottom 3, I'm not quite sure it's going to be to their advantage. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it will be. It worked for Nice, who dumped the Europa League. It's we shall see.
I think it's always an interesting thing to think about, thinking especially another team that's in that sort of kind of situation in a different league. Obviously, Manchester United winning that sort of trophy, and not only is another trophy in the cabinet, but a Champions League spot where you've maybe struggled in the league a little bit that season, although that might have been the adverse effect of it, does sometimes give you that extra open door that incentivise teams that are stronger to be in that Europa League competition, although it might, again, not be the same kind of road that they've had this season. But again, at the same time, if they miss out, it's going to be a lot of backlash at the same time. Very briefly, sort of finish the UNFP awards are going on as we've been talking, and one of the strange really awards, we have our own awards in 2 weeks, which I promise you will be much better. Really, looking at the some of the ones that have been given out, I do want to bring up one very quickly, Eric, and that's the goalkeeper one, which has been won by Daniel Subasic, who's had a solid season. But if you look at our award nominees, he's not even in that list. Is that a justified choice for such a prestigious award?
Given the competition that he faced in that award, it was Lopez, Trapp, and sorry, who was the fourth?
Was it Pele? It was Ruffier.
Right.
Yeah.
I have no problem with that. I think given that competition, Ruffier was fantastic earlier in the season. He's been a little bit less at the races in 2017. Lopez, even as a Lyon fan, he's had his moments this season, but again, not been as consistent as you'd like from him. And Trapp, I mean, there's nothing to say about that. Yeah, I have no problem with that. I think it would in terms of their performance over the course of the season. Again, I know Subasic has had his gaffes, but he's not a player who is as objectively mediocre as Trapp or Lopez. So I have no problem with that.
Me neither. I mean, it would have been quite bizarre to see Kevin Trapp win it. I mean, that would have been quite unacceptable. But Subasic is, it's fine.
I'll blame the nominees more than anything, then, shall I?
Yeah. It's more a question of what the hell is Trapp doing there? I mean, seriously. That's most of the shocker. But so Subasic, the keeper who is going to win the league and who didn't concede a lot of goals. I'm not sure if Monaco has the best defense. Actually, 29 goals conceded in 36 is okay, but not I don't know.
And looking at
we shall vote for the correct keeper in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and a very quick mention for the team of the season. It does involve a couple of interesting choices. There's Subasic, Mondi, Thiago Silva, Glick, Sidibe, Seri, Verratti, Silva, Mbappe, Cavani, Lacazette.
No Fabinho.
Eric?
I would agree. I think Fabinho has been the best player in Liga. He's been consistent. He's been reliant. He's allowed Monaco to make that transition from what had been a fairly negative side under Minardi's regime in the first 2 years of his tenure to one that's open, one that's attacking. and one that's positive, and that's what's made them a thrill to watch, and not only that, but successful. I think that's ludicrous that he's not the player of the year. Silva's had a great season, and I'm not taking anything away from his achievements, but yeah, there's really not much of a debate as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and Cavani best player of the season? Really?
It's the goals, Philip. It's all about the goals.
Yeah, it's all about the goals. It's all about, the attacking players. It's all about, I mean,
he has been better.
Try and watch some football. I don't know. It's more media cash machine more than anything else. Give the people what they want. But when you actually look at it, he has been terrific. Of course. I mean, he scored 40 goals. You can't possibly think he doesn't deserve it. But it seems like just far too obvious. Just take the top scorer. That'll do.
Yeah, they'll give the people what
That's
they want. We'll give them what they need in 2 weeks' time. I'm
exactly
almost certain in that. The best way of putting it, isn't it? That's all the time we have time for this week. My thanks to Eric and Philip, and to everyone listening at home. Join us for the preview show hosted by Eric for the final time this season on Thursday. And we will see you here for a full review. It will be a 2-hour special at the same time, same place next week. A bientôt and goodbye.